Welcome to the Glenn Beck program. I've seen all of the newspapers and the coverage of 828, the rally in Washington, and the photos. But nobody's telling the accurate story. I want to show you two photos that you've never seen before. They were taken by my photographer, George Lang, who is one of the best photographers, I believe, in the country. He took this photo. We actually called Sarah Palin because she didn't know we took it. And we called her to make sure it was okay to share with you. This is, I believe, the most beautiful picture of Sarah Palin I have ever seen. Look at this picture. That picture was taken by George, who's a liberal, and not necessarily a fan of my views or Sarah's, but he's a good friend of mine. His view of her changed just a bit because of this. She stood there praying for about 10 minutes. That's Sarah Palin in prayer before she went on. Then there's this picture. This is Alveda King. Alveda King is quite possibly one of the most brave people I know. If you see and you look at my shirt, can you put that picture back up? I'm sorry. If you look at my shirt, you will see that I'm clearly wearing a bulletproof vest. She hugged me earlier and she said, "Oh, Glenn, I didn't think of that. I was wearing it because my wife asked me to wear it. I offered one to her. She decided in the end not to wear it." That picture is her just before she went on stage. She was nervous because of the date and the legacy. She didn't want to shame her uncle. And she also was nervous because she is a marked woman for standing on that step with me. A brave woman. She came to me right before she went on stage and said, "Brother, will you pray with me?" And we did. No matter what the papers tell you, 828 was about God and prayer. But you'll understand that by the end of the hour. Come on, let's go. Hello, America. Bill O'Reilly is dedicating a whole hour to this tonight. He's going to take some different angles on it. I'm going to tell you... Well, I'm going to start with two words, and they're the only two words that I think adequately express how amazing this weekend was. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for bringing your family and your children into what the media was telling you was going to be an awful, dangerous event. The amount of people who sacrificed their time and their money to take a trip to Washington, D.C., to stand with me shoulder to shoulder, just to restore honor, was nothing short of astounding. More importantly, the character of those who came, truly second to none. This crowd was polite, it was calm, it was friendly, it was welcoming, it was helpful. It was a hot day in the sun. I mean, it's August 28th in what used to be, and still is in many ways, a swamp. People were shoulder to shoulder, standing for hours. Some of them, because you can't sleep on the National Mall, some of them came as early as Wednesday to be able to have a place close to the stage. Some people were so far away that they actually couldn't hear very well. This crowd, no matter what the media tells you, the crowd stretched almost a mile, and we will show you the pictures. It's understandable if people were frustrated. But there weren't any instances. There wasn't any complaining that I heard. We talked to the police. There wasn't, in a crowd this size, not one single arrest. The random acts of kindness that we're hearing about are truly remarkable. I want to ask you a favor. If you experienced something remarkable, please tell us about it. Write to kindness@glennbeck.com. Tell us what you experienced. After all of this time of the Tea Parties and the people on the right being painted as racist and hate mongers, finally the story is out and the truth is being told. In the days leading up to the Restoring Honor event, I said you should expect miracles. And there were several miracles. Many, many miracles. Anybody who was there knows the miracles, or some of them, that happened. But one of the miracles that I found entertaining happened right at the very beginning. If all that ever happens at this event is that a bunch of people show up, well, that's neat and everything, but we failed. You have to pick up the miracle that happened within all of us. The flame is going to burn out if you don't pick up the flame and run. We'll spend some time today talking about what happened. I want to show you first that miracle that happened at 10:59. There are several versions of this, or 9:59. There were several versions of what was happening. At 9:59, do we have the videotape? At 9:59, what happened was there was a flock of geese that ran. It was a flyover, if you will. Someone caught it on tape. Here's the flyover. This was happening just as the opening music was starting. We wanted to have a flyover, but you can't fly over in the District of Columbia. It was perfect coordination and perfect timing. Coincidence? Maybe. I think it was God's flyover. It was not supposed to happen. We couldn't get a flyover. We couldn't even get anybody dressed in a military uniform to present the flag. We tried for almost a year. We couldn't get it done. Thank God we had our flyover. I said that this would be a non-political event. Here's another miracle. Somebody actually kept their word. I told you if you were hoping to hear an election pep talk, you shouldn't come. I said, bring your entire family. This guy and his son were amazing. I said, bring your family because there'd be no anger. There'd be no hate. There'd be no racism at this event. I said the message would be about restoring honor and turning to God. I said the day would be about faith, hope, and charity. I told you for a long time the day would be focused on challenging each and every individual so we can restore honor. That's the key to restoring our country, restoring ourselves first. Those were the things this program focused on and promised leading up to the event. I also didn't tell you who was on the program intentionally because I didn't want them to go through the hell that I go through every day and others like Alveda King go through that is 10 times worse than what I go through. I kept it quiet and I warned the media. Don't say these things because you don't know. But here's what the media told you to expect. NPR worried that it would spiral into a pit of hatred. The Washington Post wondered if this was an event that would unify the Tea Party. They also said it would trigger an exercise in self-aggrandizement on a Napoleonic scale. PBS reported that nothing would be said at this event, quote, that school children would be learning and reciting a generation from now. A New York Times headline read, I had a nightmare, and called me the anti-king. Newsweek called me and the event the March of Racial Politics. And many feared the angry Tea Party people would turn violent. MSNBC actually reported just as the program started that Michelle Bachmann and Dick Armey were suddenly speaking.
You know, we have plenty of people, as you mentioned, set to speak. You have Sarah Palin today about 10:40. Michelle Bachmann, Congresswoman from Minnesota, the Republican, also set to speak, a Tea Party favorite, as well as Dick Armey, also expected a little later today.
No. Sarah Palin did. But how would they know that information? Because I didn't release any of the speakers intentionally to see how the media would cover it. Well, now that the event is over, whose storyline was closest to the truth? Was it everyone in the media or this program? Was this an event that was a political rally aimed at elections and Tea Parties? Was it filled with hate? What actually happened? No policies were discussed. No politicians were named. No elections were talked about. The event was completely apolitical. There was no anger. There was no hatred, violence. I'd be surprised if anybody even used a swear word. Martin Luther King was honored, not disgraced. There were virtually no signs. There was a focus on God, faith, hope, and charity. You heard amazing stories about some of America's most brave and amazing people. You heard prayers. People said prayers. What you saw was a minimum of 500,000 people who never claimed that God was on their side. They wanted to change their lives so they could be on God's side. So how did people react? How did the media react after they found out the truth? Well, let's start with the president. I'm interested to see what he had to say about 500,000 people gathering on the premise of God and honor. Here he is on NBC Sunday when asked for his reaction on the 828 Restoring Honor event.
I have to say I did not watch the rally. Given all those anxieties and given the fact that, you know, in none of these situations are you going to fix things overnight, it's not surprising that somebody like a Mr. Beck is able to stir up a certain portion of the country. That's been true throughout our history.
I have been told that no broadcaster in the history of America has ever done anything like this. I have also been told today that no single individual has ever called 500,000 people to the mall, and they arrived. Ever. But he's not surprised. Of course, he wasn't even watching. This is the kind of thing that happens all the time throughout history. All throughout history. These people like Glenn Beck or Mr. Beck show up. Well, I didn't know exactly who he might be thinking of, but it's good that we have everyone's favorite reporter, Joe Klein. He took it a step further and explained.
The guy's obviously a paranoid lunatic who is a great entertainer, and he is exploiting something that always happens in our country when the economy is bad and when we're at war. During World War I, if people were caught speaking German in the street, other people would beat them up. During World War II, we interned the Japanese, and now the combination of bad economic times over the last couple of years and the terrorism has led to this wave that Glenn Beck and his puppet master, Rupert Murdoch, are exploiting.
I'm actually beginning to feel bad or sad for some of these people. But Joe, since you brought history into the mix, you're right. We did round up Germans during World War I, and you were right. If you spoke out against the war, you'd be tossed in jail. And you were right, we did round up the Japanese. You left out the Germans and the Italians that we rounded up during World War II, but we put them in war displacement camps. It's nice. There's just one little fact, Joe, that you forget to point out, and that's really critical to the history lesson. It's the who part of the rounding up process. Who was rounding people up? In World War I, it was Woodrow Wilson. In World War II, it was FDR. Both big government progressives. So yes, we did round people up, but it was never someone on the outside like me who did it. It was always big progressive government. Now, here's the Huffington Post. I'm going to show you this, because this shows you the contempt for the things that I think most Americans value. It's Glenn Beck's Restoring Honor rally. This is the quote, "The most ridiculous messages in photos." The most ridiculous messages in photos. Here are the most ridiculous. Go to the first, there it is. September 11th, this is ridiculous. This is a quote from George Washington, ridiculous. Restoring honor, ridiculous. This woman, some reason, is ridiculous. This man is ridiculous. Someone with George Washington, the Constitution, ridiculous. May I ask, do you stand with the Huffington Post on those things being ridiculous? Why are they ridiculous? Now the reports of the crowd size. Let me show you perhaps the most iconic image from the event. This, I believe, was taken from the AP or by the AP, and God bless them for doing it. It is absolutely stunning. Remember, just the reflecting pool alone, I told you last week, this is 200,000 people. There are people, you can see them here and here and here, and we have photos down both of these paths at glennbeck.com. There are people, look at them, all throughout the trees. Plus here, this is the end of the block or the end of the reflecting pool. It goes across the street and the crowd picks up again. This is completely filled all around the Lincoln Memorial. Back to the Washington Monument. To be exact, the length from the base of the Lincoln Memorial to the Washington Monument is 8/10 of a mile, and it was almost completely filled with people. So here's the crowd size reporting. NBC says tens, perhaps hundreds of thousands. Associated Press apparently didn't look too close at their own picture and said tens of thousands. I've seen lots of others echoing the AP at tens of thousands. CNN wouldn't pick a number. They compared the task to counting the crowd. It's like how many jelly beans are inside a huge jar.